We're not robbing this house. This is my house. 3 days later, hadn't slept, never left the room. Spent some time in jail, some time in prison. I met my best friend there. When you go to OCCC, you're basically learning how to be a better criminal. While I was a counselor, I was being assigned all the people who had gang affiliation.
You're the gang counselor now.
I was the gang counselor. Is this going to be life-changing?
I'm Travis Purdy, an alcoholic in recovery dedicated to giving back to the community that saved me. Join me and my incredible guests on our mission to break the stigma around mental health. One conversation at a time. This is Listen to Your Heart.
Our guest today is Tasha Ariyoshi, licensed clinical social worker. Tasha, thanks for jumping on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your work. You're a LCSW, licensed clinical social worker. Where do you work at?
So LCSW and CSAC, certified substance abuse counselor. I run my own private practice, and I'm with Imua Health Group because working for myself is very lonely. And I also teach part-time as adjunct faculty for the School of Social Work at UH Manoa.
Pretty cool. So before we get back into like the day-to-day stuff, we love to figure out why people became therapists. So we love to go way back, however far back that is. So why'd you become a therapist?
The origin story.
Yeah, origin story. That's always fun, right? It's a good formula.
So it's really interesting because now I can sit here and kind of like rewind the tape and say, oh, it was because of these like pivotal moments. But like while those moments were happening, you don't know that how dysfunctional or crazy your life is, and that's what's contributing to you wanting to address like the mental health piece. But I mean, how much time do we have? Because I come from a family that is just like rife with dysfunction, right? My dad, and it doesn't look like that really from the outside looking in, but my parents owned their own travel agency. On one side, my dad was like, they own their own business. Everything was like really family oriented, but my dad wasn't home 6 to 8 months out of the year. He was taking the tours to China, to Japan, to wherever. And my mom was at home running the office, sending me and my sister to school, doing all of the things. So she was basically almost a single parent for most of the time. Right? And I was not the favorite child. I'm still not, even though I'm the only one left on island, and I'm the one who takes care of my mom. I'm not her favorite. And I'm okay to say that now, but I was not before. I bet. Right? Yeah. And just as an added layer of complexity is that on my mom's side, just addiction, the predisposition to addiction is just, my grandpa was a alcoholic, gambling addict. My grandma, she was a hoarder, and she had money issues, and just all, like, our entire family everyone had a vice. Right? So I did not stand a chance. and then so to add to that is like, okay, so I'm not the favorite. I have an absentee father. I'm predisposed to addiction. And then my parents decide, okay, so, I'm a good Asian daughter, like any good Asian child raised in the 80s. I went to Iolani because we were in the upper middle class,
that's
right?
The place, right?
That was the place for the Asian kids, right? And so I went, and then there's all this like pressure, right? Because my parents weren't rich. They just wanted me to have a good education. Yeah. And so when everybody is like, I don't know, like has the TNC shirts and the hoodies and the
TNC shirts.
I mean those are $30 shirts. You know what I mean?
I remember wanting those.
And except I'm showing up with the Tweety and Bugs Bunny 5 for $20 swap meet shirts. It's like you feel like you're on the outside, right? And so I like that was the kind of the beginning of all of these issues. And so like I had social developmental issues. I didn't have a lot of close friends. I didn't know how to develop those friendships because most of my life was based around doing homework and stressing out about school and then just like doing life, right? And then so right around, I guess, my parents got divorced when I was like around 15 years old. I stayed with my dad for a little while. It didn't really work out. And the reason why it didn't really work out is because right around I was like 16, 17 years old, I started hanging out with people from public school. I wanted a different life. And I even share this, in some of the other meetings that I go to, is that, I was raised on Boy Meets World and Topanga and Corey.
I love Topanga.
Right?
So I'm also born in the 80s and really a kid of the 90s.
Thank you.
And she is one of, like many of us, our first crush. Love Topanga. I follow her on social media.
No, Daniel Fishel.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, Daniel Fishel, man. Yeah.
Right. And
she's still like gorgeous, man.
it's like she doesn't age, like Mario Lopez.
Oh, he doesn't make any sense. Somehow he looks like 32 or 28.
Right?
But isn't
He
like
looks
closer
better
to
than
50?
he did in Saved by the Bell.
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw that out there.
And actually, I was a huge fan of that. And I still love Mark Paul Gosselaar, but you can kind of tell. He's a little older now. You can tell. But Mario Lopez, it's got to be like a Hispanic thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
people of color just tend to age better.
Yeah.
But it's just this thing, right? Where, I mean, I thought I was supposed to be having these like experiences.
Yeah.
Like friends eat at the pizzeria, like go to parties,
Supposed to eat at the Max. And,
right?
Yeah.
Like have boyfriends, do the things, right? But my life didn't have any of those things. I woke up at 4:30 in the morning, right? Ate breakfast, got driven to school, got dropped off at 5:30 because my parents had to work early. So it was like me and 3 other kids sitting in the freezing cold, like just with our sweatshirts, doing homework, waiting for everyone else to show up to school and for the teachers to open the doors to the classrooms.
How exciting.
Right?
Yeah.
And then we actually do school, and then right around 3:00 we're done, and then we get into our extracurriculars, or if it's in the off season, I'm sitting there waiting till 5:30 for my parents to pick me up because that's when they're done with work.
Yeah. So
Right?
you're at school basically for 12 hours.
Yeah.
On most days.
Yeah.
You said extracurriculars. Did you play sports and all that, or like
I got
different
into
clubs?
I got into soccer for a bit, and then I tried my hand at like art and a few different things, but I'm not good at stuff. Like I'm just not. I wasn't up to the caliber that a private school like Yolani was expecting of me. Like I wasn't gonna be some Olympian soccer player, and I'm not the next Van Gogh. Like I'm just me. I'm semi-creative in my own special way, you know, and so it was just kind of like waiting on people, and then by the time my parents pick me up, we're either going back to the office because they're not actually done working, or we're gonna eat dinner, go home. You
just can't be at school any longer, so you gotta go get you. Yeah.
And I remember sometimes getting forgotten. Like I had to use the security guard shack phone to be like, hey, are you guys
here?
coming? Like, and so it's just, by the time I was 16, I was like, where are these experiences, right? And then so enter Windward Mall. That was where I met my first public school friend.
At Windward Mall, okay.
At Windward Mall. And it was a really interesting experience. So this is the craziest part, right? And all of this happened within the span of the year, is that I totally effed off school. I developed a really serious drinking habit. I ended up, my parents like went full blown, she has no hope, you're going to McKinley High School. So I'm at McKinley, right, in my supposed to be my junior year. I got into an argument with the regular English teacher because she was stupid. And then they put me in the AP English class, to which I never attended. I never actually went to school because I moved in with these Vietnamese girls and we were just partying all the time.
Like junior year of high school.
Junior year of high school.
Okay.
And we were partying all the time, and this is where it happened, right? I started to feel like, oh my gosh, this is the life, right? These are all the experiences I thought I was supposed to have, except it started to turn into like this weird after school PSA, because I ended up, and this is where the road took a dark turn, right? I ended up on Democrat Street.
I know where that is, yeah.
I ended up in these apartments on Democrat Street because these Vietnamese girls, one of their cousins, like ex-boyfriends, lived there, and we're all huddled in the room, and out comes this pipe, right? So I've already explored the raves, the ecstasy, the acid, the weed, all the other stuff, and it was great, right? Having the time of my life. And then this pipe comes out, and I'm like, what is this? And I distinctly remember just wondering, is this going to be life-changing? Right? Because everybody's like, oh, yeah, it's going to be awesome. You got to do this. And I was like, oh, okay. And then somebody gives me my first hit, and I'm just like, I feel a little different. Like the air feels cooler somehow, except the room had no AC, which is weird. And then I was like, okay, what next? Like, where is it? Like, where's the feeling? Like, where's the life altering whatever? Yeah. Okay, mind you, 3 days later, hadn't slept, never left the room, reorganized. Like, the TV is now in the closet. The bed is now against a different wall. I've moved everything around, and I'm not even the only person in the room. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm still wondering, when is this supposed to kick in?
Right. Yeah. When's that awesome thing you were just talking about?
And then I was like, oh, got it. The energy, the fire, right? Yeah. And it wasn't about the feeling after a while. It was the lifestyle. Like always being hooked into something. And you can hear it, right? It's like, as a child, I was like low-key neglected, right? Not the favorite, absentee father. And then mix in this predisposition to addiction. And it's just like, oh, I found my people, right? We're always awake. There's always something to do. And if you're gonna go to sleep, then I can go in search of the next party. And I think that was the turning point for me, because I got so sucked into it. I had people who would pay attention to me. I felt important in some way, which is just the craziest thing, because the only reason you have anything in common with the toothless guy next to you is that you both smoke the same drug. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think, like, I don't even know how to explain, like, I guess the chaos of it, because for me, I got so wrapped up into it that there was no, the world became very small. And what I mean by that is that in my world that I had grown into and created is that everyone did drugs.
Right.
That was the narrative I told myself. Everyone did drugs. Everyone was into a little something. And everyone on the outside of that bubble didn't even exist. You know?
Just completely neglected the rest. Yeah.
Except for those little pockets, those little moments of clarity where I was coming down and I would think about my family, and I would do this craziest thing. I would make one of my I remember at 2:30 in the morning, I was in the game room. Nobody had any money left. Nobody had any drugs left. So that post high clarity started to settle in with just a hint of depression. I started to think about my family, and I made them drive me to Kailua, where my family home is, and I sat outside and just cried. Yeah. And they were like, what are we doing here? Are we robbing this house? Like, what are we doing? And I was like, we're not robbing this house. This is my house. Don't you ever try to come back here without me. But I couldn't stop crying, because I was just like, this was supposed to be this life I was supposed to have. And I was so disconnected from it. But my solution, because I was so deep into it, was, okay, enough of that. Let's go back to town. We got to find more drugs. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that was where the chaos really started to kick in, because I was willing to do anything. I was willing to hurt anybody. I was willing to take advantage of whoever. Like, who do I have to hurt to sustain myself?
Yep.
You know, and then you start to surround yourself with people who operate the same way.
Doing the same thing, yeah.
Yeah, and so you don't feel like a bad person, right? You don't feel like you're the villain in your own story, except when you take a step back, it's like, oh, wow. Like we were on some Walter White stuff, you know? like just tunnel vision, nobody else matters, like we're on a mission, you know? And I think I didn't even really realize it, is that I was trying so hard to feel a part of, and I engaged in this lifestyle for so long that I started to normalize these really traumatic events. You know, like when we're talking about like sexual assault, when we're talking about just like the areas of consent, you know, or just like witnessing violence or being a victim of, like, not even domestic violence, just like getting into some stuff, you know, and just part of that lifestyle is really normalizing that kind of behavior, saying it's okay because I choose to do this lifestyle. I choose to do these drugs. I choose to engage in this behavior, and this is part of it. So it's like you gaslight yourself. Well, I gaslighted myself into thinking like, this is what I signed up for. You know?
Yeah.
And I think that was a really hard pill for me to swallow after I got clean.
And talk about redefining normal, right? Because that's also kind of what I heard in there, is when you're in a group of people and you guys are all kind of acting a certain way, good, bad, or otherwise, well, that's normal, right?
Yeah.
And then I never thought about it in the way of completely neglecting everyone outside of the circle. So for me, I was more about trying to get away from everybody when I was in my active addiction. So thanks for sharing that. That's strong.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what it's like for everybody else.
Yeah.
I just know that, I mean, there's definitely layers of separation.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's kind of like where that led me to too, is I started to like mentally compartmentalize like these different, like, I would call them episodes of my life, or like phases of my life.
Yeah.
To where sometimes I put stuff in a box and it's just like, I totally forget about it. Like, it's on the top left shelf. I don't even put a label on it. I forgot it was there until something falls out of the box. You know, and that's something I'm actually dealing with now currently in therapy, is that something happened. I got triggered. Something fell out of the box, hit me on the head. And I was like, oh, I thought I was over this. Where did this come from?
Right.
And I'm just like, oh, I guess there's more work to do. You know?
And that's the thing, right? When it falls out of the box, it falls on you.
It
It's
falls
not
on
in the
you.
way. Like, falls on your toe, falls on your head, like you said.
Yeah, it hits you on the head and you're just like, what is that?
Right.
Where did that come from? And then you don't realize, like, oh, I thought I was healed from this. I thought I recovered from this. And my therapist, it's so hard being a therapist who has a therapist, but you need to, right? And it was so hard. It was so hard for me to hear my therapist tell me, Tasha, you know, recovering from trauma isn't linear. And I was like, you shut up.
I like that. You shut your mouth now.
You shut your mouth. And then, I mean, and it's hard, you know, and I think that's kind of like what we're talking about in the origins. It's like we have all of these different experiences, and so fast forward, right? We're looking at time being incarcerated, spend some time in jail, some time in prison. Sure. And it's not all bad. You know, I pick up really marketable skills. I met my best friend there, you know, and we've been friends for almost 20 years now.
Yeah.
And when I talk about marketable skills, I learned how to thread eyebrows. Before it was a cool thing and it was in the malls. I learned how to braid hair, which I still make good side money from, you know, and I learned how to make stationery. I can even read cards, like tarot cards with regular playing cards. I mean, it's all BS, but people believe me because it's a skill you pick up, right? And it's just like, so it's not all bad, right? But then there were also these times where being incarcerated and being treated like an animal and feeling like a caged animal because you made bad decisions, it feels so punitive. And I get it. That's what prison and jail are for. It's the punishment side of the consequences.
Right.
But that's all it is, you know? And so... I guess that was one of my soapbox things that I never really realized is like, how are people supposed to be expected to get incarcerated, come out, and just be changed people when nothing about the experience reinforces changed behavior?
Yeah.
When you are constantly treated like an animal, worse than you were before you even got incarcerated, when sometimes there's no soap for you if you don't have the money to buy it. Right? Sometimes there's no shampoo for you and your hair might be down to the ground and nobody cares unless you have lice, right? And sometimes there are no feminine products, you know, and we live in one of the countries in the world where you actually have to pay for that, where it's considered a luxury item, and that's insane to me. And so I remember sitting in Old Triple C, taking some of the pads apart and turning them into tampons. And I had friends who made a business out of it. People would pay hot cocoa, sign in.
Yeah.
Because there's no accessibility to that kind of health care while you're incarcerated.
And all this time, while it sounds like just kind of fighting to survive, right? While being treated like an animal, like you said, there was nothing to help address, well, how the hell did I even get here in the first place, right? Nothing to address, like, where did my foundation of decisions come from, my value system, things of that nature. It sounds like that was not happening.
Yeah, because, I mean, when you think about it, OCCC is a holding area for women.
Okay.
You know, you're waiting to get sentenced, because once you do get sentenced, you go to women's or you get released or you go to program, right? So it's not even made for women. So when you're there, all of the services, like the computer room, the library, like GED classes, that's only if they're not short-staffed and the men aren't utilizing those resources, because the facility is for men.
Gosh.
And so you can start a GED class. Like, this happened to when I had a girlfriend when I was in there this one time. She was taking GED classes. She didn't even get to finish it because they stopped showing up, or they couldn't service the women.
Wow.
And
even getting the short end of the stick in prison or in jail or in OCCC. Yeah. The ladies even getting the short end of the stick there.
Because it's a holding area for women. We don't even matter. We don't even count there.
Damn.
Yeah. And that's the sad part, is that it's like, okay, so how are we supposed to come out and be better friends? How are we supposed to come out and be better mothers? How are we supposed to come out and recognize that we need to make changes in our life when all we've done is needing to survive while we're incarcerated?
Yeah. With a group of other women in the same spot, right?
Exactly.
The same exact circumstances.
We make this, it's a running joke. It's like, you know, when you go to OCCC, you're basically learning how to be a better criminal.
You know, so thankfully that's not my experience being an addict, but I've met enough people through the rooms of AA or wherever, just people I've met in recovery, that's kind of that's what I've heard is what happens. It's like, there's no treatment really, or there's no rehabilitation. You just kind of learn how to be a better criminal. I mean, when you mentioned the story of like women turning pads into tampons and making a business out of it, I'll be honest, like my sales brain was like, hey, marketable skill. Right? That's kind of like one of the first things I thought. But also at the same time, like damn, how terrible that the circumstance led to someone having to do that, right? Yeah. Instead of just having some basic sanitary products available for you guys.
Yeah.
Dang.
And it creates like this hierarchy. You know, from the guards all the way down to the inmates, is that sometimes that's where the corruption starts to come in, right? Even at even on the female side, is that guards will bring in lighters, tampons, chocolate, let you have coffee, right? If they feel like it, if they like you, if you're providing some kind of service, that's where all that corruption and all that stuff starts to seep in. And if you're not playing, you don't get any. If nobody likes you, you're cut off, right? And if you don't have a hustle, like if this is your first time, you get taken advantage of. And so you have to be aggressive. Not necessarily aggressive in like outwardly.
Yeah.
But you have to have your guard up.
You got to be on edge and ready.
And so for women who historically are traumatized by the time they get incarcerated, how does that serve to help us?
Yeah.
You know, we're just reinforcing the fact that we can't trust anybody and have to be on edge.
Yeah.
You know?
So by the time you get out of that situation, however that looked, right? Transition out, part in, out, whatever. How did that lead to you like, I'm going to go back to school?
So the very first time, like not the very first time, the very first time I was incarcerated was in 2004. And it was because I was with a guy and we got busted together, and then I ended up taking my DAG, right? Which is deferred acceptance of guilty plea. And so if I did all the things they asked me to do, I could wipe my charges at the end of the day.
Okay.
Right? And then I couldn't stay clean because just to the point I was making, there was no rehabilitation process. So I came out, released back into the wild.
It was like, hey, don't use.
Yeah.
Oh, you got it.
I checked in with my PO on the day I came out.
Yeah.
And I never saw her again, right? Bless her heart, she still works for probation. Okay. And I went back to the game rooms. I ended up meeting a guy and I fell in love. I moved into his house with him and his wife, and we had the most torrential relationship you can imagine, right? But I was so in love with both of them, you know? And I think that kind of set the stage for chaotic relationships and what I was looking for in this part of my disease.
Yeah.
Right? And then I get locked up again. And my judge is just like, look, if you don't go to treatment, if you don't graduate treatment, you are going to do 5 years, mandatory. And I said, oh, no, thank you. No, please.
No, thank you. I like that.
And so I was like, because I hadn't really been to treatment before, I had run away from Hinamalka. Like, you know, I was there for a few days. I wasn't ready.
Right.
But because I had never formally been to treatment before, I had my pick, right? So I wasn't forced to go to Habilitat. I wasn't forced to go to Sand Island. So I was like, okay, let me just see what's going on, right? But by that time, I was in Old Triple C going on my 8-hour passes. I went to ATS. They turned me down flat out.
ATS is the Salvation Army one.
Salvation Army Addiction Treatment Services.
Okay, got it.
Right. They shut me down flat out. I showed up to the assessment with bloody knuckles because I got into a fight the night before. I had turned down my medication so I could finish braiding somebody's hair. And that, you know, that's the craziness, right? And they told me I was dual diagnosis. I could not go there. And I said, okay. So my lawyer was like, okay, let's try Poilani. They said you're dual diagnosis. Great. We'll get an assessment. And then they accepted me.
Yeah.
My first day there, I was so uncomfortable because I felt like I had to grieve my disease.
Yeah.
You know?
That's all I can say about it, man. My addiction was my best friend.
Yeah.
It was always there, right? Ride or die.
It's not just the substance, it's the lifestyle, you know, and how I felt in the lifestyle.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I felt so uncomfortable in my own skin because not only did I feel like I had to grieve the disease, but I really felt like I was like, I'm not going to make it in this life they're trying to make me be in. like I have zero confidence in myself trying to be a productive member of society. I don't know how to do that because for over a decade, I have not been doing that.
When you got to Poilani, do you remember the date or roughly the year?
Okay, wait. It had to have been 2007.
Oh, 2007. Okay, cool.
2007-ish.
Yeah.
Because I spent way longer in the residential side than I was supposed to because anger issues, right? They were not ready to release me into the world. And then I ended up completing that program.
Cool.
But not without its own issues, right? Because I had a chance to sit down, recognize, you know, my bad habits, my triggers, like come to terms with the fact that I actually did have anger issues and it wasn't just everybody being stupid. And I think what was hard for me was the transition out of that. It's like, okay, I have all of these feelings. I have names for these feelings. I'm more aware. What am I supposed to do with that? How is this going to help me live my life? Oh, it's not. Right? Like being able to identify that I am sad versus angry is not going to pay my bills. Like,
right.
And so while I was going to a meeting a day, right? I got myself a sponsor. I was doing all of the things and I was still angry inside, right? I was still trying to come to terms with, you mean I can never do drugs ever again?
How terrible, right? Yeah. Like never?
Yeah. So I'm still angry at everybody and then starting to be angry at my parents because that level of awareness is raising. And then I decide, genius, right? My best friend is coming out of feds. I'm like, great, let's make this happen. I'm hanging out with people in the clean and sober house. And then all of a sudden I find out one of them, he's got the load. And he's in the clean and sober house because his federal probation officer said he had to live there. And I was like, oh, well, let me just put that in my back pocket. That's good information to have. And then my friend who was living in the same house as him, he was a heroin addict. So he was like, oh, I can sell the crystal meth because that's not my drug of choice.
Right.
That was a bad idea for him. It didn't matter what substance. He ended up back in Puerto Rico on the run. Long story short, he's out of the picture, and this guy's my line now, right? and so me and my best friend, who's on probation, federal probation, right? Or no, state probation, and she's just like being my driver because I didn't know how to drive yet. Still don't have those developmental skills, right? And we're just driving around, making drops, going to meetings, reading the Just for Today. Like she would pick me up in the morning. This is how crazy I was, right? She'd pick me up in the morning. I would open the Just for Today, would read the Just for Today, be like, okay, let's get the day started. Let's go hit this game room and drop this dope off. And at the end of the, like we would spend money and go, like go to eat at these places. And then we'd go to a meeting at night. It's just this crazy, that's the chaos of the lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Is that I was standing in a game room. This is the pinnacle of it. Standing in a game room, telling my friend, look, you need to hurry up and give me this money because I got to go run this meeting. It was just crazy. And so, like, long story short, a few people passed away of, unfortunate circumstances. And then I had to make a choice. Like, do I want to keep doing this? And I know where I'm going to end up, right? The same place that got me in all this stuff in the first place.
Yep.
Or actually give recovery a shot. And that's when I decided to go back to school, And at first, in my mind, I was like, biz ad. I'll go for business administration because that's what all good Asian kids do. And then I actually got to school and I started taking the classes and I was like, I hate math. I hate math. I'm not even good at it. I don't understand any of this. And then I had to come to terms with the fact that it's just like, okay, what can I do? Right?
Yeah.
I can talk to people. I can call them on their BS. I want to help them, maybe, right? And I think part of it was like, oh, yes, I can talk to people, but inside I'm like, I don't like people. I don't actually like talking to people. I just know I can. Right?
Yeah.
And so one of my biggest motivations for even getting into social work was maybe this will help me be able to tolerate and talk to people.
Like people more? Okay. Maybe this will help me be a real people person.
Right.
Like,
because the whole premise of it is like you care about people and you want to help them.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So there we go. That's what started the whole journey.
And that's why you went to college to go learn some of these things.
Yeah, because I mean, what better person to want to help people in all these different dimensions than someone who has experienced life in all of these different dimensions?
Yeah, and to be honest, I knew some of your story, right, from conversations we've had over the last couple of years, but not to this degree, right? But I can't help it because of lived experience that, I always love a person who's a therapist that has the lived experience. Not to discount the people without those lived experiences, because, man, there's a lot of awesome therapists, smart, really good at what they do without having to live it. But as a dude who's lived my version of it, it just kind of has a special place in my heart. The brain part is great too. But you mentioned being a good Asian kid a couple of times, right? And the reason why is because it's been more in my like sphere, I guess you can say, this past year. Because one thing our company's trying to do is help more Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islanders, right? Get more services to them. And then I heard this at this working group I went to, is growing up as like an Asian American. It was actually a woman from the East Coast who told me this, is thinking about the pushback she got because she wanted to be a therapist. And that's not doctor, that's not engineer, and it's not lawyer, right? So do you have anything to share on that? Being like a Asian kid from Hawaii and wanting to be a therapist, like, any pushback from friends, family?
To be honest, I think when people see me now, because I set the bar so low that it's like, great, you have a job? Awesome. We love that for you. Like, you mean you're self-supporting through your own contributions? Amazing. But I think when I started out, like they sent me to Iolani, the expectation is that, yeah, you be a lawyer, you be a doctor, you be an engineer, whatever floats your boat, as long as it's one of those three. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. I come to learn that. And then I got to imagine too, as the years go on. So I went to private school as well. So as I'm, in my head, I call myself crackhead. So as I'm doing crackhead stuff in my 20s and maybe late 20s, early 30s, all my classmates, I'm seeing them, doctors, lawyers, having families. And then, I don't have a kid yet. I'm not married. I'm just trying to make sure I don't get evicted, things of that nature. And, that kind of messes with you.
Oh, for sure it does. Like this was some years ago, but, like social media and all that. And then you see like some of your classmates are work for ESPN and they just went to the ESPYs and I swear I was, because I'm a non-traditional student, right? So I found myself at UH at the their little medical thing. I had to get a form signed or something, and I was like, I think this guy was my classmate, but he was the doctor.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And it does mess with you a little bit because it's like you got a late start. You know? And you have to own it because you got a late start because of the choices you made.
Right. So now you're going to school. You went to school here, if I remember right? Yeah. So you're doing that. And I know as you're going through your programs and all that, you end up doing like practicum where you get some clinical experience and then internship. I don't know if it's all in one, whatever. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Kind of amazing. So in my bachelor's, my practicum was with Family Promise of Hawaiʻi. My practicum instructor, I love her to pieces. Can I say her name?
Yeah, up to you.
Christy McPherson. She was like when I was in college, I looked at her like a mentor. Like she had the energy, she had the passion, and she's still firing in the field. She is amazing. And I just wanted a piece of that. Like, you know how like in ANNA, they're like, just get around the people that you want to be like. Yep. I did that at school.
Nice.
Like I took her classes. She was my practicum instructor, and I just had an amazing experience. She gave me the freedom and autonomy to really figure myself out and like develop my identity as a as a social worker. And
as a young professional on your way up.
And I really appreciated that. And then fast forward to the master's, right? I ended up doing my practicum at Hinamauka.
Okay.
And it was quite the experience.
For those who don't know, Hinamauka, if I remember correctly, is the largest residential program here on Oahu.
One of
in
the,
Hawaii.
yes.
One, if not number one, number two, size-wise.
Yeah.
Right, size-wise. And oddly enough, that's also where I went to treatment.
I went there too, for a bit. I think like if you haven't passed through there and you've been an addict in Hawaii, I mean, where are you? Under rock? Like
that. Did you even go to treatment?
Yeah. And so it was really interesting because I came on in the clinical team. That's where I was supposed to do my practicum. But you have to start at the very, I don't want to call it the lowest because that is the communication hub, right? But you have to start in, I guess, the base position.
Sure. Entry level.
At the front.
Yeah, at the front.
Right?
Okay.
You have to be front facing, and you have to answer the phone calls, figure out where to direct them to, have people sign all the forms, come in, do the things, like you're kind of like the communication coordinator, right? And I loved it.
Awesome.
I loved it. Like I would return all the phone calls. I would take all the messages. I was
high.
Sending people all over the place. And I was like, oh, you got to go to lunch? Oh, go ahead. Go. You go. And I really enjoyed it. And it was time. It came a time where I was supposed to transition.
Okay.
And I didn't know that, right? I was just going with the flow. But I was supposed to move to intake. right?
Okay.
But the people in the front didn't want me to move to intake. So intake was like, is she ready? And they're like, oh, she's really good over there.
It's like, Tasha's doing really good over here. Maybe she should stay with us.
And then so I finally end up moving to intake.
Okay.
And I love that too. It was a slow start for me because I was just like having to observe a lot of the intake assessment process and then watching different clinicians do see what their style is like, figuring out what's supposed to be accomplished there.
Yeah.
And my first intake, I was a mess, right? I took 3.5 hours. I was just gathering data, if my life depended on it. and Auntie Yvonne, she came in and she was like, Bebe. I was like, yes, Auntie. She was like, you got to cut this time down, like way, way shorter. You're supposed to be banging out 3 of these by now. I don't know what's going on, but you gotta get this information in the important pieces, right? And I was like, okay, because I was kind of falling into that clinician trap, right? I want you to feel comfortable with me. I want to build rapport with you. You can tell me your life story, but your life story is going to take a long time, and I only have 45 minutes, hour to give you, right?
Yeah.
And so she really taught me how to redirect and ask the questions to get the information that I needed.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was like she was great at teaching me how to do the assessment process.
I believe she still works over there.
She
too,
does.
Right? Yeah. I've heard that name. Yeah.
She's amazing. And
I've heard only great things about her.
Oh yeah. She's such a hard worker. She's so passionate. Yeah. She really is amazing. and she kind of, in her own way, really kind of kept me going and kept the fire going.
Cool.
Sometimes. And then eventually I moved to the clinical side, and it was fun. I think it's specifically the population. I really did love doing groups and coming up with my own activities, and just they call it track 3, right? But what that means is
dual diagnosis?
No, that's track 2.
Oh, okay.
So track 3 is you got a substance use problem and you're a criminal.
Okay. So I was on track 1, like me.
Oh, you're self-admitted.
Self-referred. Yeah. I was on the track 1 because I remember when we had to do groups together, and
it was a mess, right?
I'm all like, what is happening here? Exactly. I remember we had to do anger management group in the cafeteria. And the woman who did it, she was awesome. And actually, she gave us this really great definition of humility that I remember to this day. But I do remember being in this big group, and I'm like, me and my 4 track 1 people in the side over here. I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah. It's just chaos, really.
Yeah.
But I found a passion for it, because there's I guess I found my own special way to communicate with this particular population.
Sure.
To where, while I was a counselor, I was being assigned all the people who had gang affiliation.
Okay. Now you're the gang counselor now.
I was the gang counselor. Yeah. And it was really interesting because I would come into work and they all got mommy issues, right? And so I would come into work at 6:45 and doors don't open till 7. Right? I just like to come in and get set up. They're all sitting right outside my door trying to tell me, see, what had happened was about the night before because they did some squirrely stuff. Right?
Yeah.
And it was just the most interesting dynamic that I feel like I really learned a lot about professional boundaries and a lot about my own internal boundaries, because you get so invested as you're a residential counselor. And that was what she wasn't my supervisor, but she was one of the counselors where I took her job because she was leaving and they offered me a position before I graduated, right?
Cool.
So what she told me was, you'll really love this. You'll love being a residential counselor because you get them first. You're the one who's going to set the tone for the rest of their treatment. And so I was like, yeah.
It's like, talk about mattering and having an impact.
No, for real. And I think that's what I loved about it so much, is that as a residential counselor, you really do set the tone for how setting the expectation for what you need from them.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you do need to show up. Yeah, you do need to participate. Yeah, you should care, And I see the difference in IOP because I did a few of those classes too, but you don't really get as many touches because they're out living life.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so as part of the practicum experience, what I also recognize is that nonprofits also have issues,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
And it's not always related to funding, even though that's a huge one.
Right.
But I think that sometimes, and this is what I've seen in my experience, not just specifically with Hinamalka, right, is that sometimes administration doesn't really understand what it takes to deliver services.
Right. Took the words right out of my head. I was like, yep. As soon as you said that, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. And so when you're trying to explain to them what resources you need and why, and they're looking at you like, why can't you do it with A, B, and C? Why do you need X, Y, Z? And you're looking at them like, have you even seen how we need to deliver these services or what the outcomes are when we don't provide X, Y, Z?
Yeah.
And they're telling you yes, but you're like, no, you haven't, because you would agree with me if you had, right? And then to be told that maybe they have the wrong team on the bus when everyone around you is busting their butts to save the lives of the people that you are serving.
Yeah.
It's disheartening, And they don't know what they're talking about because they're not boots on the ground. They're in meetings all day. They're just trying to money grab, right? And maybe I misspoke.
It's okay.
But I feel like in a nonprofit, that's where a lot of the focus is, right? You have to know how to keep the lights on. And for administration, that's their job.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think sometimes there has to be a liaison to be able to translate and switch gears, because you're a nonprofit and you're looking for all this money to provide services to this population. These are the people that matter.
Yeah.
It's
a huge challenge just in my short time, 6-ish years or whatever, working in healthcare. Unfortunately, I mean, this better than me, SUD treatment, addiction treatment, rehab. I mean, the whole model kind of, like as a business, the whole model kind of sucks.
No, it does.
Right?
It's not set up to make money.
Yeah, it's not a money making.
Like...
it's not exactly a money making thing, which is why, man, so many of these treatment programs are just kind of running, I don't know, on smoke and mirrors, some of them, or they close, right? Actually, what really happens is a lot of them close. And I know it's not unique to Hawaii, because I've been able to meet different people from across the country, and it's all the same issue there. You still need more money coming in than money you're spending, but it's tough, right? Insurance reimbursement for addiction treatment in that setting is not the highest. And we get it. It's not everyone's favorite population, the SUD population, but like you said, the point of it is to save people's lives. And those people have impact on not only their circle and their families, they have impact on everywhere else, right? Whether it's committing crimes or kids or the workplace, right? Absenteeism or being productive, workers in society, or like you've been sharing with us, where you've gone and lived the experience of being in treatment, completing programs, and still having some chaos, but then finally deciding, you know what, I'm gonna do this other thing, recovery, work, be a therapist one day, social work, and went full force, right? But that's a big impact, because I mean, we couldn't even count probably how many people you've helped since back then to all the way to today.
Hope I helped somebody.
All right, that's the hope, right? If you help someone along the way. Probably countless people, I would guess.
But it's so interesting you say that, right? Because it's just like, okay, so I'm at Hinamalka, and then we're talking about funding, right?
Yep.
And I'm making just a little over minimum wage. And I get it. I got to pay my dues. I'm at a nonprofit. I just graduated. You know what I mean? Yeah. I get it. But also at the same time, it's like, I'm providing clinical work,
Yep.
And so
challenging clinical work,
I want to be able to support myself,
yep,
and do this good work, right? And I shouldn't have to choose. So I found myself at Salvation Army ATS with a really unique opportunity to create my own program. So I actually initially interviewed for a counselor position, but the supervisor of outpatient called me back, and she was like, we actually have this other thing. And it was for a vocational specialist at the time. And she described to me well, you would just be kind of handling the outpatient portion, and just kind of providing classes to residential and outpatient about, job readiness and,
cool.
and interviewing skills. And I was like, I got that.
Yeah.
You know, I would love to do that. And so what was just supposed to be like a couple of classes a week to the different levels of care, I turned into an entire program to the point where I made them change my title to vocational program coordinator.
I was gonna say there's a lot of vocational training happening here.
No, and it was kind of amazing where I got to really develop these partnerships with like Hele to Work, IHS, and like the Hana Lima program with HCAP, and like I even when the Microsoft store was at Ala Moana, we would actually take field trips there, and they were able to use the technology to make like LinkedIn profiles, and like I would do their resumes, and we would go over it, and then we were taking them to like all kinds of different places just to like build confidence. Like I even had this like scavenger hunt thing, right? Where they go in and they ask like 6 different places for applications, you know?
Nice.
Or they go in to a certain place and they ask for a free sample. Because a lot of these guys don't feel comfortable interacting with just regular everyday society.
Yeah, regular people. Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
And so part of these activities, they're supposed to teach social skills.
Yeah.
Right, but in a real like Miyagi kind of way. and it was so funny because some of these guys would feel so good about themselves after.
Yeah.
You know, and I really did enjoy that work, and that kind of helped me bridge the gap and be ready for what I do now. You know.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed like all of these different experiences, but yeah, I feel like I went like all the way to the left.
No, actually, I love the origin story that you shared, because then also kind of what I heard, honestly, is like a recipe, right? I heard the recipe and all the different ingredients, and that's also, I feel like, kind of how you laid it out. It's very nice. Like you had this, you added a little bit of that, and then next thing you know, this is what happened, which led to this, which led to that. So no, I'm glad you went into your origin story that way. That was awesome. I got to learn a lot more about you. Yeah, no, that was great. So now you're talking about you were working there. This is after graduation. When did you get like licensed sometime right after that, or like?
Right. So right when I was at ATS, I had completed all my
clinical supervision or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Because like I think when I was at Hinamauka, I was like, you know what? I'll just go for the LSW because it's some kind of license, right? You don't really have to do anything for it. You just pay the money and get licensed. But for the clinical one, I had amassed all my hours because my supervisor was also an LCSW, which.
Cool. Thankfully.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen that go the other way too, right? Where the supervisor wasn't the type that can sign off.
Actually, I asked that in my interview.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is my supervisor like a LCSW or something?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That was a good forethought.
And I also asked, would you be willing to supervise me and sign off on the hours?
Awesome.
That was one of the big selling points. So I had the LSW, and then right as I was about to make a transition, I got my LCSW. So I was like, okay, awesome, because I got my CSAC while I was at Hinamauka, right?
Sure, yeah.
And so I had the alphabet soup going for me.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Love that.
And then it's kind of like, okay, now what? And so I found myself at Ohana Health Plan.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
making triple what I was making before.
Yeah.
You know, and because I just felt like, okay, maybe I'm ready to try something different, because I had the program up and running, like everything was really smooth. I even, you know, and this was something that's really close to my heart, is I helped a handful of guys get their C-based diplomas before the program sunsetted, which helped them to kind of like level up in terms of the kinds of jobs that they could get.
Oh, how awesome.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
And can I share this, please?
Yeah, please. Okay. Yeah, share.
So actually, one of the guys, this past couple weeks, he just graduated with his bachelor's in social work.
Wow, that is so cool.
Yeah.
See, you helped at least one person.
And one of the other guys, he's gonna start his master's program.
Love that. That's so great, man.
You know.
Yeah.
And so, like, that program was really close to my heart because I know, at least for a few people, I was impactful.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. I think that's one of the gifts of the field that you guys are in, is as time goes on, as you're in the field long enough, people are going to just pop up, or you're going to have these stories pop up to kind of, at least to me, I see it as like extra fuel, as if you needed more to keep it going. You know, like, hey, that thing you did 7 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever really mattered, and you may not have even known at the time that it made a difference for somebody. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. How about private practice? When did that happen?
So I was at Ohana.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was doing community care services. I was that connecting piece where my job was to go out, meet people in the community and assess them to see if they would be a good fit for community care services.
Okay.
And then I would fill out the assessment form and then get them actually a case manager.
Okay.
Right?
Oh, so you're not case managing. I always thought that's what you were doing. You were a case manager at that time.
So it started off as case management.
Okay.
And then as the CCS program started to really roll out, my job shifted.
Okay. And you're more kind of doing like intake and assessment?
So
kinda?
What is it called? Like a 1157?
Oh, right.
I was
DHS
doing those.
form? Yeah.
And so I got to like make connections with some awesome people in the community, and you know, I was the person who would crawl under a bridge to be like, hey, are you here? I gotta fill out some forms today.
Yeah.
Like,
So you went from being the gang counselor to the crawl under the bridge counselor.
I was the crawl under the bridge person. And then I remember distinctly one of my guys, bless his heart, I really did have, like, there's a soft spot. I have a soft spot for him. He had a rough go of life. He had some trauma and alcoholism. And I remember, like, we finally got a space at the ATS Detox. And I flew down there and I picked him up, like, literally under my arm. Because,
literally.
Yeah, I was like, we gotta go get your meds so we can take you to detox. And he had a Four Loko in one hand. He was sitting at the bus stop because I went to his like apartment complex, and they were like, we don't know where he is. He might be around. And so I went. He was, sure enough, he was at the bus stop, drunk. And I was like, hey, we gotta go get your meds because I can't go pick it up by myself, right? So he's under my arm, and I'm like, we gotta move. So I grab his Four Loko, and I'm holding it in front of him, and we're going.
Oh my God.
We're going. You know, and so we finally make it to Waikiki Health Center to get the meds. We're there for a little while. He was like, I was like, you can't bring the alcohol in there. They're gonna make you toss it. He's like, well, can you wait down here with it? And I was like, go get your meds. Go get your meds. So I'm sitting there just outside with the Four Loko in my hand.
Like I'm posted up with this Four Loko.
Yeah. And then, 45 minutes later, he comes down with his meds. And I was like, okay, come on. We got to go. You got to pack your stuff. And then so we're hoofing it back across the street to his apartment. We go upstairs, and I'd never been up there before,
Yeah.
And it smelled like barf and a little bit of shishi, and everything had a layer of dirt on it. And I was like, shall we just leave everything? And he was like, no, I got to grab all my things. And I was like, what things? Just leave. This all looks like trash, bro.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, my shirts are important. I was like, okay, you got it. Let's grab your shirts. Let's grab your shorts. And he was like, well, my bed inflator. And I was like, you're going to have a bed over there. I'm going to make sure your stuff is still here. Let's lock this up. It took 50 minutes to get him down 3 flights of stairs.
Oh, gosh.
We get him in the taxi. They drive him up there. I follow them, drop off his stuff. And I'm like, aloha.
Dang.
Yeah. And I don't even know why I was telling that story. but I, that's what I was doing as a function of that job. And I think what happened, oh, right. Okay, got it. I'm hooked into it again. I think what happened was the COVID started to kind of like get more serious.
Yeah.
And so I was less in outreach, and I was more like
working
on the
home?
phone.
On the phone. Okay.
Yeah. And then so they told us, okay, no more meeting in person, no more this, no more that. And I was like, okay, how am I supposed to find these people though? Because they don't have phones.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And they're like, well, it is what it is. Right. And so what was interesting about that is that they had a system where I would get a referral. I would do the 1157 over the phone or through video chat.
Yep.
And that's just what it was for a long time. And I was like, I feel like I could be doing more. And so that's when I started.
That's when private practice.
That's when I started the private practice.
Right
like
on.
I started doing all the paperwork, the credentialing,
Yeah.
because we're just sitting at home, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, this is the perfect time to get all this paperwork done.
That's true. Yeah, you're not driving around all over the place.
Yeah, and the craziest part was I had most of the applications printed out and halfway filled out. I was just so overwhelmed with real life and that I had stopped. And so as I picked it back up, I sent everything in, got credentialed, and by the time COVID was in full swing, I could start taking people.
When it came to starting your private practice, did you just like Google follows the instructions as much as you could, and then that's how you got kind of started?
It was a little of that, but mostly my colleague that I met at Hinamauka, John, he walked me through the whole thing. He was actually trying to convince me to do it while we were at Hinamauka. But I am stubborn, and I was like, leave me alone. That sounds complicated.
Yeah. It's like, a lot going on already. Yeah.
And then, you know, the stuff he was saying as I was going through the process started to make sense. And then I started to opihi him. I was like, hey, can we hang out? Hey, can we meet? Hey, I have this question. Hey, what do I do with this? And he was the guy. You know, he had all the answers, and he walked me through all the things. He even gave me some errant CMS forms just in case I had to print them out.
Yeah.
You know, and he kind of like helped me throughout the entire process, set me up. We were even like sharing the same EHR, and I was just paying him half, you know what I mean? And we shared an office, and that's kind of like, I mean, we're kind of still joined at the hip because we're just friends, you know, but I mean, he really helped me get everything off the ground.
Awesome.
And all the things that he didn't know, Google did.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah. No, obviously I talk a lot with people about private practice, and I really just give 3 pieces of advice. You can actually learn a lot of that stuff on your own, but it's probably better ask somebody you know. Right. And then, of course, the last thing is you could always just pay someone to help you. But usually you can find out from your friends and colleagues who are in private practice, right? Because some of your classmates, they're doing it, right? Or like for yourself, I'm sure a bunch of your friends ask you about private practice stuff because you've been doing it for how long? About 3 years?
A few years, yeah.
A few years now? Yeah. No, that's pretty cool. Let me transition to kind of mental health in general, right? Just what are some of the main things you help people out with, like patients?
It's gonna be presenting, anxiety, depression, mostly some substance use, but I've noticed my patient roster has kind of started to transition away from that a little bit.
Cool.
So I see less of that now, but mostly presenting anxiety and depression. But as we unravel the ball of yarn, trauma, PTSD,
Sure.
Even like OCD or like the obsessive disorders, it can get very complex.
Yeah.
You know?
What are some of the kind of misconceptions you think people have about, let's say, going to see a therapist, or just kind of, you know, I don't know, mental health in general, you know, anxiety, depression, like, yeah.
Well, I mean, it starts off with the general stigma is that if you see a therapist, you are crazy. Right? And so it's like, oh no, you don't, like, I mean, even growing up in an Asian household, right?
Yep.
It's like, no, you're not sad. Go outside. You're not lonely. Go talk to somebody.
Right.
Like, and not a therapist. Go make friends.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, well, if you're crying, I'll give you something to cry about. You know, it's just like
Classic line.
Yeah. And it's like, you don't get to actually have a space for feelings.
Yep.
And so as adults, we almost gaslight ourselves into not making space for feelings. And then we wonder why we have difficulty sustaining relationships, romantic friendships or otherwise. We wonder why we resent our parents, but also feel this weird obligation to do everything they ask us to do. Right?
Right. Yes.
And so we find ourselves in this really complex space where we're at war with ourselves, and we're trying to figure out how best to treat that. And I think we're in a space now more than ever, that it's like, okay, maybe therapy can help, right? And we're slowly in a culture that's starting to destigmatize that.
Yeah.
But I think it's complicated for a lot of people. I've had patients tell me, oh, thank God, I thought you were going to be one of those therapists that just was like, how does that make you feel? Oh, and I was like, well, that's not me. So if that's what you were looking for, I'm not a good fit for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your style as a therapist? If you had to name it, describe it, what is it?
I think it's a mix between, I'm very open-minded. I will never judge you, right? But I will push your buttons. I am a bit confrontational, but in a very loving way. I will hold that space for you.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I won't sit here and let you run around and talk in circles about the same stuff over and over. That's not me helping you.
Yeah.
And if that's what you want, go talk to a friend for free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I like that. What's funny is as the years have gone on, from my first experience in therapy, I don't know, 15 years, whatever ago, I've come, whenever I get a chance to talk about it with non-therapists, I just find therapy to be this real safe place where there's no judgment and the whole thing's really about me. Yeah. And there's not really relationships in your life where that can be true, right? Like your friends, your family.
Everybody's got an alternative agenda.
Yeah, right. And then real conversation is more of a back and forth, right? Whereas therapy, like I literally can monologue for 95% of the session, and a therapist will help redirect or ask me a question I don't want to hear, but that's what it's about. And actually, I like that. I like that. So I like what you said. When we do talk to our friends or we're in our own echo chambers or however we want to describe that, it's kind of what happens, right? When we talk to our friends, we just complain about the same stuff over and over again, and then your friend can co-sign your stuff. Or we all do it for our friends too, right? Kind of co-sign our stuff. Man, that sucks. Like, yeah, that sucks, bro. And then it just kind of becomes a cycle. But change never really happens that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like also the way you described it, because it all, growing up male in our society, it's all those same definitions, right? There's no space to cry. There's no space for fear and all that. It's just, right, man up, keep it moving,
And I was that person. Growing up, it's so complex, because my dad used to call me his little samurai because I would not cry in front of him. You could see the water in my eye, like as a layer over my eyeball. Nothing would fall.
And you forced it to stay still.
Yeah, I willed it to not drop from my face. And as an adult, now being a therapist and having done all that work, I cry for everything. Like I even warned you before this started. I might burst into tears if we're talking about something. Let's just keep the show going.
Keep it moving, yeah.
And it's really interesting because as I was growing up and then going through the disease and then getting clean and all of this stuff, it's that, like, I even felt like there was no space to have feelings. And I also didn't allow for the men in my life to have feelings.
Right.
Like if you cried, ew, don't cry in front of me. Gross.
I know a woman or two like that.
Yeah. And so it's so crazy, because it's just like, now I'm just like, if you don't cry in front of me, what is wrong with you?
Like you got some work to do, man.
Yeah. Like if we're talking about something really emotional and really important, like if you're not tearing up, you need to go talk to somebody,
Yeah. No, absolutely. Because usually what us guys are left with is anger and violence, right? Yeah. That's what we're left with. So gotta hit somebody or something. So back to mental health. Let me ask you, as a therapist, you probably get I would assume you get a bunch of frequently asked questions about, right, depression, anxiety, mental health, whatever it is. What are some of the most common questions you get, about those topics?
Like from patients?
Yeah, or anyone, I guess. Yeah, but some that come to mind.
I think it's not necessarily like a question, but it's when I'm offering information about how anxiety and depression show up.
Okay.
Because people hear anxiety and they just think somebody on edge who just
right,
worries and just you think of like almost this like little white lab rat, just you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just hyper vigilant.
Yeah. And
then with depression, I think people in their minds, it's just like somebody lying on a couch, can't get up and just crying all the time, And really, in reality, anxiety can look like someone who shows up in your life and is smiling and is super engaged and doing all the things, and you never have to ask for anything because they're just right next to you with the thing that you need. That is an overthinker. They are worried about you and how you might react if they're not bending over backwards with zero boundaries to give you the thing that you might need.
Yeah.
And depression, it's just like, do you find yourself wanting to put your fist through a wall? Sometimes that can be depression. Do you find that you're more irritable with your partner and them breathing makes you roll your eyes and want to just slap them? That could be depression. you know, and so I think it shows up in different forms, and people don't really recognize what that means.
Yeah.
Right? They think they're just, oh, it must be this, oh, it must be that, oh, it must be because I'm tired. And it's like, well, is it tired or is it fatigue? You know, how long has that been lasting? Is that just today because you had a long night last night? Or did you get the full 8 hours of sleep and this feeling has not gone away for 3 weeks?
Right.
You know?
That actually reminds me of like the stereotypical idea of having a drinking problem, right? I'll go with drinking since that's been my drug of choice forever. But usually, right, people who drink alcoholically, now I don't mind, in my head at least, call them, man, I get dude or woman is totally alcoholic. But they might not, because like, well, I have a job. Like I still work,
the
right?
functional.
Yeah.
The quote unquote functional.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, like 97% of us have jobs and drink too much and we're alcoholics.
Yeah.
Like that's actually normal. Alcoholics aren't just people who are homeless and at the bus stop.
And I think it's really dangerous, alcohol especially, because it's so socially acceptable.
Right. And encouraged.
Yeah.
And encouraged.
In those social settings that
Absolutely.
it causes so much of an identity crisis when someone who's it's like, oh, I'm anxious, let's have a shot. Or like,
Right.
oh, we're going to a party, we're going to tear it up tonight, right?
Yep.
It's just like, how do you unravel that piece of yourself and who's left?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think all of it is a little bit complicated, even with the drugs too, because I used to logic myself and be like, well, I'm not talking to a tree in a park, so
Yeah.
so I'm
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, and I think the same for anxiety and depression is people think that like, okay, so I feel like this crushing sense of overwhelm and it's hard for me to focus and I hate my job and I'm starting to hate my family and I just want to crawl up in bed, but I can't because I got bills to pay.
Right.
But I can get up, so that's not depression.
Right. It's not so extreme, right?
I'm not crying all the time, so that's not depression.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's kind of like where our jobs as clinicians is to create like just a level of awareness to everyone kind of experiences anxiety and depression and even the other things a bit differently, and it shows up differently.
You know what? I think you're already kind of answering this question in my head, but in regards to kind of mental health and the stuff we were just talking about, depression, anxiety, and so on, what are some of those questions you think people should ask themselves?
How do I feel right now?
Okay.
Why?
Yeah.
I think people move so fast all the time because life, right?
Yeah. It is the era we live in, right?
Yeah, and we're so
Yeah.
checked out because social media. It's like, okay, I'm tired and I can't function, but I will scroll on my phone, right?
Yeah.
And so we just completely detach. But I think it's like, okay, when we're faced with something or when we're uncomfortable, take a second. How do I actually feel? Do I feel overwhelmed? Do I feel uncomfortable? Do I feel sad? You know, do I feel like I'm crawling out of my skin? And it's just like, okay, why is that? Why is that happening?
Yeah.
How often has this been happening? You know,
Yeah.
I think people really don't check in with themselves enough. And then for the ones that do, it's like, okay, now what? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. What do I do with that information, right? And then to be fair to you and the ethics and the field in general, this is totally not behavioral health advice, right? This is not therapy or treatment for somebody, but more like just sharing your experience as a therapist. And then me, obviously, I'm not a licensed medical anything, so I just share from my own experience, right?
Sure.
But I definitely think, you know, some of the things you said, at least for me, I know it has been helpful. I used to call it like temperature checks, like my first few years.
That's what I call it in
right?
session.
Yeah. And I was just kind of like, what's happening to me right now? Because something feels just slightly off. And knock on wood, I've always been very in tune with what's happening to me. You know, like something's just a smidge off, not way off, but just a smidge. And we know little things over time will put us in, put us in weird places.
Oh, yeah. I'll give you the perfect example. Is that my partner could say something on a Tuesday at 3:30 in the afternoon in an innocuous conversation, and it will, one word he uses or one phrase he utters will ding in my head and register as, huh. And that, huh, will keep me up at night, and I'll be like, well, what did that mean? What did the tone mean? Well, why did he say it like that? And I will never ask him, because why am I even thinking about this in the first place, right? Should have called it out when we were having the conversation. But no, at 11:30 at night, what could that have meant? Does that mean that he's doing X, Y, and Z when he's not talking to me? Does that mean that da 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 da? And I'm going down this rabbit hole, right? And so fast forward 3 weeks, and I'm just like, I just want to punch him in the face. You know, and for no reason. He's not doing anything. I trust him. He trusts me.
Doesn't even know anything's going on.
Yeah, he doesn't even know there's anything going on.
Right.
But then he'll breathe, and I'll be like, ew. And he's hypersensitive too, so he'll pick up on my internal ew, and he'll be like, "What's the matter?" And I'll be like, "Nothing." Because there's not supposed to be anything wrong.
Right.
Because I had this whole dialogue and conversation with not him.
Yeah. Right.
And so to your point about the temperature checks, it's like, okay, why did that hit me the wrong way?
Yeah.
It's because I've had a lot of experiences where that tone or that phrase led to something that causes me to feel like I couldn't trust my partner. You know, and it could have been all the way in the disease. It could have been a previous relationship, but it was that, right? It wasn't even him.
Right.
It was all this old stuff being spun up that I wasn't taking an inventory of, and that I didn't take the temperature check of, so I couldn't keep it in check.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I have to be so aware of what is going on. And to your point, yeah, got to check in with self and make those little adjustments.
Hey, like you said, that is a classic example, right? And it's just going and going and going. Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I feel like from our conversation, you actually have given a lot of like practical like advice or tips or thoughts that people can use that could be helpful. But how about formally give us like 2 or 3 practical tips for anybody watching, something they can do to help either take care of themselves, take care of their mental health, you know, something for something healthy.
I'm a firm believer in structure.
Okay.
You know,
Same.
some people don't subscribe to that, and they're like, fly by the seat of my pants, love to live in the chaos. Love that for you.
Right.
Go on.
I am not one of those.
I'm not that person. I have 3 digital calendars all merged together with each other for different reasons, color coded. Everything's got blocks on blocks on blocks.
You're my kind of people. You're my kind of people. There
I just need, and I'm very visual, so I need to see it.
Yeah.
You know, and to the point where it's like, it's not just the obligations, it's the self-care.
Yeah.
You know, and we kind of touched on this in passing, but it's like, yes, I have to schedule in the face mask time.
Yeah.
I have to schedule in like when I'm meeting with friends, and when and to give you the visual is that the personal time is color coded in like this coral pink.
Nice.
And my private practice time is in a light green, and you know, Imua is blue.
Nice. Yeah.
It's in a navy blue.
That must also look nice.
Yeah,
it must be pleasing to the eye, the calendar.
It does, but when I notice that there's not enough coral pink,
Yeah.
is that I need to start making adjustments, because then I know I'm not giving enough time to myself.
Yeah.
And that's how I kind of make that adjustment, because if I'm not careful, I will fill everything up with work. I don't like blank spaces, and if I don't fill it with self-care, I will fill it with work.
Yeah.
That is actually how I started my doctoral journey. Not only do I want to force people to call me doctor in the next few years, but it's like I saw these pockets of hours of time, and I was like, what are we going to put there? Let's start this. And that's how it happens. So if I'm not careful with what I'm filling these pockets with, is that it'll just all be work, and I'll burn myself out.
Yeah.
So that's actually how I stay mindful. Yeah.
With that calendar. I love that.
Yeah.
Structure. Now, I'm a big fan of structure. And, you know, I've always told my partner, for whatever reason, I'm just not like that great in a crisis. But you know what I am really good at? I am really good at preparing as best as possible with all the steps and the things and the plan A, B, C, and, you know, D1s.
Yeah.
So that way it seems like I'm actually responding really well. But the thing is, if I get caught
You
off
were
guard,
ready.
I am actually not that great. I'm more like, you know, a little deer in headlights. So yeah, so a lot of overthinking, all that stuff. So I love the structure advice.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give to someone preschool but thinking about getting behavioral health?
Get your personal life in order.
Love that.
And what I mean by that is, you can't get into this field to heal your own wounds. You gotta work on yourself first, so you don't make therapy about you. So you don't make the clinical
Yeah.
space about healing your childhood stuff, about healing your DV trauma, because that's not the space for you. That's why you need to go get your own separate help.
That's what your therapist is for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're the patient.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. And then, so quick on that. Now, think about someone who is going to school, whether bachelor's, master's, whatever. They're in their program to be a therapist one of these days. What kind of advice would you give them?
It's not about the A.
It's not about the A.
I say that because I've come across a lot of students who are so fixated on getting the A. And I was
okay,
one of
I
those.
get it, yeah.
I am. I am that person, but I won't let my mental health suffer to get the A. Like, I am neurotic. Like my colleagues, like I'm on the phone with Amanda going,
We did hear about your 3 calendars just like 4 minutes ago. Yes. I know.
like I am obsessed with, I want the good grade, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to have a breakdown. I've got all that stuff tucked away. I'm not going to put my mental health at risk for the A, right? I'm not going to stay up for 3 nights writing and rewriting and editing and rewriting a 4-page paper. Like, that's not me anymore.
Yeah.
That's not me anymore. And that's why this advice is that it's not about the A. It's about the experience. You're there to learn not just what's in the book, but you're there to learn how to be present.
Yeah. 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 No, I love that advice. I also love that advice too, because at this point I've hired therapists, and at least speaking for me, nobody cares about your GPA. Nobody cares about the GPA.
That's true. And that's what it is, right? Is that, and it sucks that we have to learn that after we graduate. I wish somebody had told me that while I was going through.
Like, learn, put it in your like spirit, in your soul, in your mind.
Yeah.
Not on the test paper, right?
Yeah. And you know, now, and that's really been life-changing in this doctoral program is
Cool.
that, I want the A, but not at the risk of myself. I'm really there to be able to gain the knowledge that they are presenting.
Yeah.
That's what's important for me, because the whole reason I'm there is to be able to level up, to be able to implement better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Practical. You want it to be practical.
Because I see a lot of students, they graduate and then they flop in the field because they don't have this assignment, write this 10-page paper. It's actually about connecting with somebody.
Yeah.
You know, and being present. And if you didn't start practicing that at your practicum while you were in class with your colleagues, it's a struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As I've learned, what you guys do, it's art and science, right? There's the science stuff, which is what school's for.
I have a quote.
Oh, please.
I literally print it on pens and I give it to my students. It says, social work is the art of listening and the science of hope.
I love that. Okay. You might have to text me that later. I really, really like that. I really like that. Hope's so powerful, especially because in my previous life, there was a lot of hopelessness. So hope to me is just such a powerful thing, right? So the last level of advice is, what kind of advice would you give someone who's now early career, right? Maybe just got licensed.
Have a strong self-care game.
Okay. I like
Nothing else matters.
that. Yeah.
Everything will come. Have a strong self-care game.
Strong.
Because
self-care.
people who get into this field, especially like social workers, we have crap boundaries. We are the people pleasers. We are the enablers. We are the caregivers. We are the fixers. And we have, and that's why I'll speak in the I. That's why for a lot of us, people like me and I get into this field because we're like, what do you mean? Somebody to step in, and this is our job. We get paid to help, to fix, to do the things. And so it's really important to be able to know that when you close that computer, your job is done.
Yeah.
Right? Don't stay up in bed thinking and worrying and researching. And yes, sometimes the function of your job might call for that. But no, you have to take care of yourself. Because if you don't, and they give this advice all the time. If you're not pouring into your own cup, you're pouring from an empty cup. Yeah. Right? And you're not doing anybody any good pouring from an empty cup.
Right.
Right? You're just basically selling dreams at that point. and I think that that's one of the most important things that has to be reiterated and reinforced over and over again, because people, even the idea of self-care, right? People think, a spa day, or take myself retail therapy shopping, or do a face mask, or get my toes and my nails and my eyelashes or whatever, or get a massage, right? But that's just like a physical aspect of self-care, right? There are so many different dimensions of self-care, like intellectual, right? And people think, oh, well, I read a lot for my job. No, something that stimulates your mind, not something where you read the first 2 paragraphs and you start to mentally check out. That's not intellectual self-care, right? Or like spiritual self-care, because not everybody's religious, right? Like, how are we nurturing our own sense of spirit and creativity, right? And just like sometimes it's environmental self-care. Like, is my chair ergonomic? Right? Is the lighting right? Like, do I have the gamma ray glasses to protect my eyeballs? Environmental self-care, right? Because if I'm not investing in taking care of myself, then everything's going to start to fall apart.
Man, I love that. I love that. And they're all in different categories. And you're right. And sometimes they're small. Self-care things can be very small.
Yeah.
But it all matters. It all adds up. So we're almost done with our show today. And what I started getting in the habit of doing is just sharing a little like personal story or something to that degree about whoever's on here with me. So I don't know if you remember this, but how we met, right? We met through a mutual person. And what's funny is this person, we thought was going to come work with us because it was like a friend of
Me too. I thought that too.
Yeah. So we thought this person was going to come work for us. And then what's funny is he brought you and was like, hey, it's my friend Tasha, so I'm like, hey, how's it going? Nice to meet you. And I remember sending him all the applications and everything, and I never had another conversation with him again. That was like 3 years ago.
Back.
Yeah, and here I am. Tasha sent all this stuff back. I'm like, but I mean, I guess Tasha may work with us, I guess. Even though, we met this other whatever's. And actually, it's been awesome. So I'm assuming you like working with us too, because you still do. So I've been very grateful to have worked with you these past few years. And this is how actually I describe it to incoming people is Tasha must like working with us because like 3 of her friends do too now or so. So I'm going to assume that was a good thing. It was like 3 or 4 of her friends like work with us now. Yeah. And then it's funny you mentioned earlier about having to work the front desk at Hinamalka. Because one of those people, one of our therapists, she told me she remembers me as a client at Hinamalka because she was working the front desk. I was like, oh, I really don't remember that. She goes, no, I remember you because you're very nice. I mean, you know how some of that front desk stuff can go about, hey, running late or whatever. And she said I was just always very on it. I'm like, oh, thanks. Thank you. I'm glad we get to work together now. So that's how we met. And that's like what I still remember to this day. And then, you know what? Just even coming to here to sit with us, I love learning more about where you came from.
It's a wild ride.
I love the origin story, and I look forward to talking more about that. And I look forward to sharing with you all my stuff, because it's funny when you mention how a lot of us end up resenting our parents at some point, right? And for me, my resentment started shifting. It was like for one parent, and then all of a sudden it shifted to the other one. Like, how weird is that?
Because your level of awareness changes, right?
Yeah. So off camera or not, or maybe we should do another one of these. That'd be great. It'll be great to talk about that. So, and then actually, I'll tell you the thing I really remember most about meeting you. I don't know what was happening. I think it was because it was new in our company's journey, but I felt this weird need to keep telling you specifically that I was in recovery. It was like really weird. I always thought it came off weird. There was this one meeting we had. I remember I was on a computer. I'm like, why the hell am I telling her this again? It's like I told her this like 3 times. But you know what? You were so kind. You were just like, I'm like, yeah, right on. Thank you. I'm like, okay, yeah. And that's what I remember to this day. I just felt all weird about it.
Well, I think it's good when somebody feels comfortable saying they're in recovery, because it's nothing to be ashamed about.
Absolutely. I've been telling people for years now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. So here's our kind of sign off question, if you will, to end the show. We're testing it out. It seems to have gotten good feedback, but it's this. When you listen to your heart, what is it saying?
Oh, God. That is a hard question.
It's the name of the show, right?
I mean, okay, like off the top of my head, my answer is literally Whatever you're thinking right now, you're wrong, you stupid.
Hey, talk about like a reflex to always check in with yourself.
And I think that's my go-to, because I had to condition myself that way in recovery. Like, whatever your instinct reaction is, you are wrong, sit down.
You had to build that in.
Yeah, and I think today I say that to myself more out of grace, right? It's about respect for the journey, where I've been, how far I've come, and it's just like, okay, take a beat though.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I love that answer. You know what? We're only a couple of shows in. That might be my favorite answer for a while. I find it hard for someone to top that. I like that. I like that. Tasha, thanks for being on our show.
Thank you for having me. It's been an honor.
Awesome.
And thank you for tuning in to Listen to Your Heart. If you'd like to help our mission, check out the link in our bio to visit our store or make a donation to our nonprofit, Imua Heart. Like, comment, and share with friends and family. Subscribe for future episodes, and together we can Imua towards a happier, healthier Hawaii. Until next time, mahalo.